Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Laura Kunkel, America in Bloom's Executive Director. AIB is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. How exciting! AIB promotes and builds vibrant and sustainable communities through volunteerism and education. We emphasize flowers, plants, trees, heritage preservation, and environmental and lifestyle enhancements. We envision communities across the country as the best examples of welcoming and vibrant places to live, work, and play. Through our programs, grant opportunities, online resources, and the sharing of best ideas from towns and cities across the country, we empower communities to beautify and improve the overall quality of life. Today's webinar is an example of the ways that America in Bloom shares information to help communities become more beautiful, vibrant, and sustainable. You can learn more about AIB by visiting our website at americainbloom.org. A quick housekeeping note, if you have questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A section of your Zoom toolbar, which is likely at the bottom of your screen. We will answer questions at the end. Please do not put questions in the chat function. Please put your questions in the Q&A section. This webinar is being recorded. It will be posted on the AIB website later today and also posted on AIB's Facebook page. Today's webinar is entitled Rain Gardens That Work, Beautiful Solutions for a Cleaner, Greener Community. We are joined by Rod Barnes, Town Administrator for Edmonston, Maryland. Rod is also an AIB Advisor and past President of the AIB Board of Directors. We are so grateful to Rod for being with us today. Take it away.
Thank you, Laura. Wow, that's an exciting introduction, and I hope that we are able to live up to that value. As she said, I am a town administrator, but I have multiple hats as I serve as an America in Bloom advisor and get to visit communities across the nation, and had for the past 2 years until the end of last year served as the president of America in Bloom. What a great honor! It's a great organization with lots of wonderful resources to help people do a better job of making their communities just a little bit brighter. But today, rain gardens is the topic. And the way that I guess I have become the resident expert is our little town in the Washington, D.C. metro has over 95 rain gardens throughout its 0.45 square miles with 1,609 residents. So rain gardens mean a great deal to Edmonston, and particularly as you'll hear why that is the case as we do a case study. But before we get into the case study, we're going to talk about, if we can make these slides go forward. There we go. What is a rain garden? So the picture you see on your screen is a very well landscaped rain garden, but it is typically a depression that's planted with native shrubs, perennials, and grasses designed to capture, treat, and infiltrate stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces like roofs, driveways, parking lots, anything, streets, working like a mini ecosystem. They reduce runoff volume, filter pollutants, and allow water to soak into the ground within 24 to 48 hours. And they can be a beautiful amenity in any yard, at a commercial establishment, or in our case here in Edmonston, they are everywhere along our city streets. So what we're going to try to do is to, besides talking about what a rain garden is, we're going to talk a little bit about how a rain garden works. We had planned a step-by-step video, but due to some audio difficulties on my end, my system didn't seem to want to do that, so we're going to skip that. But we're going to give you the facts through slides. And then we're going to talk about plant selections, maintenance, and then look at a case study of our small town here in Maryland and how we've accomplished a great deal using rain gardens. So to get started, I'm going to ask Laura to do a little poll. If you would quickly answer the question of, have you heard of rain gardens before? Yes, no, not sure. Looks like lots of yeses are popping in, so that's good. Glad to see that. We'll learn from each other as a result of that. All righty. I think we still got some coming. And Laura, I think they have slowed down now, so we can end the poll. So 24 out of our 30 has said yes, and 5 people no. So for those that are no, you'll learn a lot, I hope, today. And for those that said yes, you'll get some enhancements, perhaps, and thoughts about rain gardens that you hadn't got before. Remember, you can add questions and answers section on your screen. Go there and insert your questions, and we'll be able to answer those at the end. So let's get going. This particular picture is a great picture of rain gardens along a street. They've taken advantage of using native plants and the depression. Looks like there's a roll down curb so the water can roll in, the stormwater can roll in off of the street anywhere along any of these rain gardens. So good, good examples there. So the rain garden has to have, they've got to have an inflow. They got to have a ponding depth so that the water can um, can um, can collect, and then they have to have mulch, and in some cases an overflow. Um, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We don't use under drains or typically any kind of overflow here in our area, but it's going to depend on your soil. It's going to depend on where you're placing the rain garden, on how that can work. The soil mix is extremely important. We happen to have an expert engineer with us that helped write the regulations for rain gardens here in Prince George's County in Maryland. And so he came up with a mix of soil, compost, and soil that works really extremely well in our particular area, but that's going to vary in terms of the soil mix from the location across the country. Okay, my screen is stuck again. I'm having.
Rod, click on the screen that you are trying to advance.
There we go. Thank you, Laura. So how does a rain garden work? It captures and infiltration. Its rainwater is directed from gutters or impervious surfaces into the shallow sunken garden beds. You can see 3 examples here. So instead of running to storm drains, the water sits in the depression and filters into the ground, a process that allows for about 30% more infiltration than a standard lawn. So the top 2 pictures are here in Edmonston. So on the one on the left of your screen with the fire hydrant in it is a typical what you would see here, with the exception of we don't like to do the retaining walls. Obviously, you're building something that we're trying to get rid of impervious concrete surfaces, and so we don't want to do that. This particular, as you're going to hear more, this particular homeowner was majorly concerned about bank erosion and a safety hazard, and so we came up with our landscape architects came up with a design that could work to make this more receptive for that particular homeowner. And you can see the curb cuts easily there, working just like they should as the water pours in from the storm drain. The second picture on the top to the right, we had a resident that was very, very unhappy about the curb cuts, did not want to have a curb cut in her yard, very particular about her yard. The rain garden idea was great as long as she got to approve and look at and accept the plant choices, but she didn't want the curb cuts. So we went to our construction folks and we said, how can we do a curb cut here in front of this lawn a little bit different than we would do normally? And so they came up with this ingenious idea of essentially making it look like a curb, normal curb and gutter, but providing for the openings to allow the water to flow in in underneath the cap that maintained the curb line for that particular street. And this resident was quite happy with that result. You see below another example. This one actually where the water is flowing into the rain gardens just as it was designed to get the water off of the streets exactly the way that it should. So as it passes through the engineered soil mixture, the roots and soil microorganisms absorb the nutrients, break down the contaminants, and trap sediments, removing up to 90% of nutrients and chemicals. So here you can see they have dug out the area where the rain garden is going to be, taking out the soil that could be not as conducive to infiltration. The other thing that we do always here is we do soil boring and testing. So that's always helpful so you know exactly what the filtration rate is in your particular area. That would determine then the soil composite mixture, and it also would determine whether you might, in some cases, need under drains. We do not need under drains here in this region and in our particular community. That reduces the cost of a rain garden significantly. So the deep-rooted native plants thrive in this environment using the excess water and nutrients and can simultaneously help keep the soil loose for better drainage. So here you see a rain garden in Edmonston that is in our industrial park, and you can see the various native flowers that are used along with, in this case, it's in the right-of-way, so there's been tree canopy planted in this area, and we're going to talk about how these are maintained as we go forward. And the timing, everyone gets a little bit concerned about standing water, as everyone should. This is back to that particular rain garden at the resident. So the idea being is that any water that flows into there from the storm water off the streets should be dissipated in 48 hours. If not, then you have a problem with soil compaction or in the soil itself. The drainage mixture, the soil mixture isn't allowing for the appropriate drainage. People worry that that's going to create a mosquito breeding place, but that's not the case as long as that water is infiltrating at the proper times. You definitely want to avoid any standing water. We've rarely had a problem with those 90, almost, I think last count up to 99 rain gardens. We've maybe had 2 over the last 5 years where the landscaper the construction company had to come back and do some modification in order to make the infiltration work just a little bit better. So what are the benefits? I mean, obviously, so far we've talked about what it's all involved with the rain garden, the components, the plants, the soil, doing soil testing to make sure that you're using the right soils and that you're not going to need an underdrain. Well, obviously, one of the major benefits can be reducing flooding and erosion. The town of Edmonston floods easily. We're in a floodplain. The Anacostia River, the northeast branch, flows right through the middle of town, even though it's flood control by the Corps of Engineers. Here, we still get lots of water runoff. Our storm drain system is old. It is owned and managed by the county. So while we'd like to see it upgraded, that hasn't happened. So we determined in 2009 that one way to help our situation was to install rain gardens. And through wonderful avenues, we were able to do that. So we've seen less flooding on our streets as a result. Improves water quality. We're part of the Anacostia watershed, which ultimately is part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and that having good water quality is vital for both of those bodies of water. It recharges the groundwater, and as we all know, and across the country, that's important, particularly if you have wells that are supplying water for your communities. A big benefit that comes as a result of rain gardens is the pollinator. You're putting in native plants, so you're going to be attracting wildlife habitat, whether it's birds or any other kind of wildlife that you'd like to see in your area. The plants can help make sure that butterflies are a great avenue that you can go after using your rain gardens as habitat for plants that attract the many different butterflies. Beautifying landscapes, certainly a rain garden, if it's designed well and maintained well, can add to the beauty of the community. We take, as we're going to talk about more later, we take great pride in involving our residents and the community in decisions about rain gardens. But I did have as we put one of the first rain gardens in an industrial area. Maryland or Edmonston is known for being a first. We built the first complete street in the state of Maryland, which included 9 rain gardens back in 2009. And ever since then, we've just been adding first. We put in some of the first permeable gutter panels. I call them Lego blocks. You right along the gutter, you place permeable panels, whatever size you would want that's pre-formed. You create the base with the soil mixture, and you place the panels to allow water to filtrate through that system versus going into the storm drains. But in the industrial park, I had a gentleman that owned a very large portion of it, one of our industrial parks, lots of warehousing. And at some point in time, he planted Bradford pear trees, and the utility Pepco had decided that those trees had grown to the point of obstructing the wires, and so they came through and removed the trees, much to the chagrin of that property owner. And so then we introduced the idea of building rain gardens in the industrial park. And so this gentleman came and he said, Rod, we can't do that. You just can't put rain gardens there. They're damn ugly, and I don't want them to be in my area. And so I explained what was going to happen. I educated him on what a rain garden, if it was maintained and looked after, would look like. And so we marched ahead with planting the rain gardens and developing the rain gardens. And about a year and a half later, once the plants had been somewhat established, he came knocking on my door and said, wow, I'm really, really thankful that you stuck to your guns, and the rain gardens are beautiful, and I'm really happy that they've been added to the industrial park. So they can have an impact on aesthetics in your community in a very big way. And then if there are stormwater costs, that's potentially you can do that. And certainly they are green infrastructure that is widely used across the country by urban ecology and environmental engineering folks. So for me, they've been wonderful. Some great myths and facts. Does a rain garden form a pond or wetland? No. The rainwater soaks into the ground within 24 to 48 hours after a storm. So you don't have to worry about creating a major nuisance, a safety hazard, or a mosquito breeding ground as a result of your rain garden. And that answers the next question. Will a rain garden become a mosquito breeding ground? Absolutely not. They lay eggs in standing water. This isn't any standing water. It flows down usually within 24 hours, but no longer than 48 hours. And are they expensive to build? We have found that they're not particularly expensive. It depends, again, on where you're building them and in what kind of setting. They can be expensive in a downtown area where you're dealing with a great deal of of infrastructure. But here in Edmonston, we do them. One policy we have is we only build them in public right of way. So we're never acquiring land or asking homeowners to sell us land to place the rain gardens. We simply put them in our public right of way. Typically, we do then have the space, and we don't have as much interference, although sometimes we have utility wires. But if we know that ahead of time when you're calling the 311 to come and check for you. And so if we have to, we can relocate a rain garden in order to allow for that to occur. And then again, the cost is going to depend on your size, how much labor. We take advantage of volunteers. So if we're planting a lot of rain gardens, we'll ask for volunteers on it and create a planting day, and we can put out plants. I'll show you a slide here in a little bit about where we planted 1,500 plants in about 2.5 hours using about 100 volunteers. So there's lots of avenues and ways to change up and make the cost a lot lower than what it could be. And the size is totally up to you, depending on what you're trying to solve. If you're solving runoff from a roof and you want to create a rain garden to capture some of that runoff, or if you're trying to capture runoff from the streets from stormwater, then the size is going to vary accordingly. One of the key other components of a rain garden, as we've talked a little bit about, is plant selection. And this is really, really important if you're going to locate them in very visible locations. A backyard might be different than in the front yard along the street. Industrial area might be different than a main street. And so one of the things that we've done, along with our on-call engineer that does the design work for us whenever we're doing rain gardens, he incorporates the use of a landscape architect so that landscape architect can then create the plant palette that works best for the location of the rain garden. And whether it's really, really important also to get feedback on what that's going to look like in the end. One of the things we learned over time is we like to see color all 4 seasons. So we like to see a variety of plants that are going to provide that, whether it's spring. We've had some of the rain gardens planted with tulip bulbs and daffodils. So in the spring, they pop up, and the rain gardens look before the other native plants start getting very tall, look really beautiful. But then during the summer, we have blooming plants, and then the fall, we have shrubs and plants that change color. Probably the lowest amount of color and vibrancy happens for us in the winter months of January and February, and can happen into March. I hope, and I know you're from all over the country, and we're dealing with absolutely crazy weather for the beginning of March here, middle of March. We have 30s for a high today, and we had 80s last Thursday. So, and we're supposed to have had terrible storms yesterday. Thankfully, we didn't, but we know that parts of the country are seeing tremendous amounts of snow, tornadoes, and wind. So, plant selection is really important, staggering the heights, making sure that the smaller plants are in the front, typically towards the street if you're doing this along the street, and putting the taller plants in the back. And then, as I said, think about the color that you can have all year round. So plants are typically selected by moisture. Remember, you're trying to put plants in your rain garden that are going to soak up that water. So there are plants that require lots of water, or trees or shrubs that that like to have lots of water. So in a Zone 1 designated basin, this comes from the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, where it's frequently wet standing water. Then you want deep water absorbing root plants, blue flag iris, swamp, milkweed, bush. If you're on a slope, you might want to think about a more resilient plant like Joe Pye weed, cardinal flower, asters. Careful with the asters. The asters here in Edmonston in the rain gardens, it's like they're on steroids. They grow to be 4 and 5 feet tall, and sometimes the residents aren't particularly happy as they fall over and they don't particularly look as beautiful as they could, even though they bloom for such a long period of time. And then if you've got a mostly dry, infrequent moisture, you don't get a lot of rain, look at black-eyed Susans, purple coneflowers, little blue stem grass. Those we do a lot of grasses in the rain gardens here. We use a lot of black-eyed Susans and coneflowers. The black-eyed Susan, of course, is Maryland's state flower, so we see it a lot. We have a lot of swamp milkweed, just a big amount of Joe Pye weed too. So here in the eastern United States, and particularly in Maryland, these are plants that all work quite well. You can find though lots of information about plants all over the place on the internet. You can use AI. It'll list out. Here's just some list of grasses that work: the switchgrass, the little blue stem, as I said, Canada wild rye. We use some red twig dogwoods in some of our gardens. They're quite beautiful during seasonal times. We do berry holly and we do winterberry shrubs. All of these are things that we've done and worked well for us, but they, again, depending on your location, and you need to check that out with your county extension office, or as I said, AI can give you directions. Many of the land universities through their county extension offices have guides. That's what we were gonna see this morning, a guide on a step-by-step procedure for planting a rain garden. But you can go online and actually see those just about anywhere on the internet. And here I just put in a few samples of that. The Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay has a great installation video about rain gardens and step-by-step procedures. Same way with the University of Maryland Extension, they have a great thing. So I've provided you here with a couple of resources that you can take a look at for how-to and videos. And then I thought the rain garden plants for either sun or shade on getbusygardening.com was kind of interesting too, as many of those colors are plants that we have used at one time or the other. So then the other big issue, once you're happy with your location, you've figured out how big you're going to make your rain garden, you've got all of the ingredients that it's going to be successful, you've figured out your soil mixture, you've going to do your curb cuts if it's along the street to provide for the water source, and then you want to make sure it performs well. It takes typically, if you're we are planting plant plugs typically for plants. That's what is most affordable, and so the timing of when those plants are put in the ground is important. And so and that first year they may need some watering. As you know, you don't know when the rains nature's going to provide water, so you have to make sure that in order to keep them living, you may have to do that planting in the spring or in the fall, and not during hot summer months unless you're watering on a regular basis. Another important component, and I'm going to show you some slides here in a minute about clogging up. You heard us talking about you've got to have the curb cuts. If you don't have those curb cuts, then how's the water going to get into those gardens? And so in the case along the street, you got to have those cleaned on a regular basis. So here in Edmonston, we have a contract with a landscape company, and they come through in spring and fall and um, remove the sediment buildup, because obviously if you're collecting rainwater from and stormwater from the streets, you're going to get dirt and sand and soil. And so um, you got to make sure that you leaves and trash and whatever, that the inlet is clear so that it's collecting the water that is supposed to be collected. Sometimes erosion is a big problem in a basin, and so you may have to go in and design, do some maintenance in terms of re-landscaping, reconstructing. Um, the interesting part is we have rain gardens on our what we call Main Street. While we don't have a retail business community here in Edmonston, we have a main street that cuts through two major state highways, and so it has residential, primarily crosses the river, and so on there is 9 rain gardens, and those were built and constructed in 2009. So over time, the plants become a problem. They don't look good. They need to have replacement. They need to be plants added. And as I said, the landscapers come through in spring and fall, remulch if they need to. They take out the sediment. So sometimes plants are disturbed in that manner too. And so we need to come back and do some replanting to make sure that and rain gardens are just like your lawn. They can fill up with weeds. And that's when the gentleman was complaining about the rain gardens going in the industrial park. That was one of his biggest concerns. What do we do about weeds? There shouldn't be weeds significantly if the mulch is being cleaned and stirred and added to every year, and you're pulling weeds and making sure that there's no invasive plants that are causing a problem during the season or during the year. But weeds, as you know, find a way to grow in concrete cracks or in anywhere that they can. So that's important. And then, as I said, there may be times when you're needing to water if there's an issue about drought or the plants are not surviving. That's where it's key again on choosing which plants are best for the climate conditions of your locale. So here, when you talk about maintenance, here are two, these are actual pictures taken of rain gardens here in our community before the landscapers went through to remove sediment. So you can see exactly what happens to a rain garden. In the bottom or in the right-hand side one, the sand and salt probably with that has rolled into that one in a big way. So they had to come through and actually remove that. On the left-hand side one, leaves looks like it's been a big problem there, along with a mixture of sediment, of dirt and rock and debris that has rolled into there. So the landscapers will come through, they'll remove that, dig back any distance that they need to, replace the mulch, and then replant if there's any kind of issue with plants that are impacted by that maintenance. So you've heard about what a rain garden is. You've seen in some of the examples of how you go about to build it. We've talked about plant examples, and now we're going to talk specifically for the last part of the webinar on the case study here in Edmonston, Maryland. You're looking at a picture of our main street. Right there, our green street. You can see the bike lanes. Those are permeable pavement areas. We have tree canopy. We have recycled furniture. We have LED lighting on this street, and then bike lanes and pedestrian crossings. The street is somewhat crooked as it was designed to reduce traffic and speed and allow for pedestrian safety as far as crossings are concerned. As I mentioned, we're a small town in Prince George's County, Maryland. We're just a few miles northeast of Washington, D.C. We're 0.40 square miles with a diverse population of 1,609 residents. 60% of the community is Hispanic, 24% is African American, and 10% is white. Um, we're known for being a green community as we focus on green alternatives for all of the ways that we go about business. We have a door-to-door food composting program. We have solar. We have energy charging stations, electric vehicles. Um, anything that we can do to help make our environment better, we try to focus on. I talked about all the features of our Green Street. And then, as I said, we're part of the Anacostia River watershed and the Chesapeake Bay watershed, the northeast branch of the river essentially divides our town in half. So rain guards provided solutions to us, and through the Chesapeake Bay Trust, the Prince George's County Stormwater Management Program, and EPA under the Recovery Act, the town has been successful at receiving $2.1 million to construct over 96 rain gardens in the residential and industrial sections of the town. Here you're looking at a rather large one before the spring maintenance. As you can see, they'll come through now and remulch here in this month, beginning of April, and they'll trim back the grasses a little bit further. And in this particular rain garden, they chose to place a birch tree, so that birch tree's soaking up rain. It's fun to see. While I usually am out there helping plant all these plants, it's fun to see them actually grow and to mature levels. What's been the result? This is in an industrial area. Across the street is residential, but in the side where this large rain garden is located is the industrial part of the town, the 46th Avenue Industrial Park. So it has resulted in reduced street flooding. We've seen obviously filtered water. You can see some trash laying there already that will get collected and picked up. It's a native habitat for birds and wildlife. Aesthetically, it's a very pleasing entrance to that particular area. And it's a grassroots effort to receive residents' support, and then we educate for residents on the benefits of rain garden. So I'm going to talk about some of those ways that we do that. Some lessons learned that we've had, as I said, 99 rain gardens is a lot of rain gardens to construct over time, and so lots of things that we can learn from that. One of the key things is the buy-in from the residents. So we hold charrettes in the neighborhoods. We'll go in, we'll set up on a table and on the street or in the parks, and we get feedback then from the residents on what we'll show them the designs of the rain gardens, where they're going to be located, what the plant palette looks like, and allow for feedback then on if they want to see some changes. Here in Maryland, we have a program with the University of Maryland for certified Maryland communities, and part of that is to have a green team. The green team is made up of volunteer residents that focus on developing green ideas for communities in managing those ideas through volunteerism. We do demonstrations. It's really important with the demonstrations to show folks what it's going to look like. And then you'll see in just a minute pictures of, we've placed educational signs in every rain garden, so that in both English and Spanish, so that anyone that sees that sign can read about the rain garden, figure out why it's there, what its value is, and what it's doing and accomplishing. And so that's been a really great value for trying to teach our residents about education. We partner with various organizations to do webinars and or workshops. One of the great partners here in our area is Nature Forward, and then another one is Defense de la Quinta, and both of them are environmental focused organizations that teach residents and teach participants on the value of the environment and what goes on. We will do a workshop when we're doing a planting day, so sometimes they can learn as a result of that. We listen to concerns. Obviously, we want the residents to like what we are building and love what the colors are, and so we listen when they say, "Hey, we don't want the asters to be here because they're too big. Could you replace them and place them with some smaller growing plant?" Or we'd like to see more color, so could you add some coneflowers or add some phlox? We have a rain gardens over one of our streets that have most beautiful phlox in the spring. The bed just looks really, really beautiful. And that particular resident in front of her home, she was really concerned about the asters. So we took care of reducing the number of asters that were planted there. The curb cuts are another big issue. I told you about the resident that did not see what she described as ugly curb cuts. So we came up with a solution that maybe made it less ugly and more attractive. Soil mixture and soil testing, vitally important components of any successful rain garden, making sure that the soil will percolate at the rate that it needs to, and that soil mixture is what is allowing that. And then, as I said, we don't do under drains. The first 9 that were built here in town, but the engineering and construction, as it was new, the idea of rain gardens was new to the area. The engineer requested drains in those, but we haven't put a drain in since those 9. So the 90 other rain gardens constructed here in Edmonston do not have under drains. As I mentioned, we use the permeable gutter panels. The idea of the rain gardens led to that thinking. So you can see in the bottom of your screen, that's the permeable gutter panels being installed as they created the base. And then once the base was completed, they came in. And again, this is the industrial park. This is about 400 linear feet of permeable guttering panels. And once that bed is made, then they bring the poured in concrete pervious panels into play. We also use street trees with curb cuts. That's another great avenue to allow for stormwater to get off the street. If you have you can do an inlet, tree well inlet, where the water is going to go in to feed and water the tree that might be growing along in the public right of way. And we do that a lot. We have a rain garden map on our website, so you can go to our website, look at all the different sustainability practices that we do, but particularly you can take a look at our rain garden map. So volunteer planning, this is the one that I talked about one day when we had 100 plus volunteers planting. The mayor is in the middle of that group of young people. It's always fun to see young people doing the planting and understanding the value of what they're doing. So before we planted this, we had a workshop on what rain gardens were about, and then the 100 plus volunteers planted 1,500 plants in 12 rain gardens that particular Saturday. This was a city street, about a 2-block long, 3-block long city street. And then this is one where we partnered with Nature Forward. And so they explained that and then had fun allowing the students and the young people to do plantings right after that. So use volunteers any way you can. Here's an example of a garden that has daffodils bulbs, so that it comes up in the spring, and you can see the back side. This had a home where a senior citizen lived, and she was always worried about the trash getting in the garden, and so I I said to her as she was getting elderly, I was concerned about her going down into the rain garden. And so we came up with that wall concept that you see along the back. But then not only this, the rain gardens, there's two rain gardens in front of her home at the time. And her sidewalk to the street dissected the two rain gardens. And so there was nothing there to keep her from falling in the garden. So we put in hand railings and created a safe venue for her to go and come from her home, but then also kept her from also wanting to go down into the gardens and pick up trash and be safe. The one on the left, as you can see, that one is a spring blooming plants and some early summer. It also used a retaining wall. This is the gentleman that owned the building that thought the gardens were ugly. So I think he'd come back and say that they're not. That's in the industrial park. And then, as I just talked about, here's the house where the senior citizen lived. And you can see on that particular day, they looked like it was bulk trash pickup day when I took that picture. And so, but the railing is there and the wall is there to help protect her from being able to get down into the garden and clean it. This is at the edge. This is in a park, and it is at the edge of our industrial 46th Avenue Industrial Park. You can see a very big, very large parking lot, and so this park would flood constantly, and it's had playground and equipment and a court, and so we wanted to stop that, and so we put in a rather large rain garden. As you can see, this one was just one garden, and so the landscape crew planted it. And it happens to be at the back of our community garden. Here's the educational signs that go in our gardens. You can see that the one on the left describes the permeable gutter system, but the one on the right actually describes that particular rain garden function there in the industrial park. I've already talked about our partners. Chesapeake Bay Trust is a huge partner with us, as they have helped through grant funding fund most of these, but they also provide us a great deal of resources and education and learning all that you can learn about rain gardens. And then here's just some sample pictures of what some of our industrial park areas look like with the plants coming out in early spring. The one in the center is wintertime, and you can see lots of shrubs. I believe those are Sweet Bay magnolia in those gardens there, so they will be blooming in the spring to create color. This is in our Buchanan Street Industrial Park, and one of our most recent projects. And so you can see what the plants look like when they're first planted, and then you start seeing as they mature and start growing. And this happened to be our final inspection picture from when the grant folks came to ensure that we were doing what we were supposed to be doing. And as we mentioned, tree grates work. This is an example of a tree grate curb cut and tree well, so that this tree is doing extremely well as a result of the wonderful rain it gets from the stormwater runoff. And then we did another, since our main street is kind of important to us as far as getting from one side of the town to the other, and the 9 rain gardens, we came up with the concept of doing recycled bikes as an art feature. And so we took those recycled bikes and did an art competition, did a $1,000 donation from businesses and residents, and we themed the bikes so that all 9 of them are themed after various cultures that are existed in the town, and not disturb the rain garden in any way, and created a nice feature to add to that. So great thing. So I think that gets us to questions, and so I'm really happy to have shared just for a few minutes the case study that has happened here in Edmonston, and hopefully you have learned a lot about what rain gardens can do and be in your community. So, Laura, I will let you begin with the questions.
Good. Thank you, Rod. This has been wonderful. All right, we do have some questions, so we need to be brief, but certainly give an answer if you can. We're going to start with the topic of plant selection. We have a few about those. Have you found that some plants are better at soaking up road salt and such better than others?
Yes, particularly on Decatur Street, where there's lots of traffic, and so we're really sanding and salting there. We struggle with having to replace plants more regularly, so that's why we've turned a little bit to the grasses and using some of the grasses to do that. The other thing that we've ran into more than maybe the salt and sanding is shade. In and if the garden is in a lot of shade, then we got to really be specific about using the types of plants that are going to thrive in shade. But our black-eyed Susans, our asters, our coneflowers typically are doing well in any of our rain gardens, even the ones that are impacted by road salt and sand.
Very good. Next question. The plants that you are using seem to be all perennials. Do you have any rain gardens, perhaps in the care of a homeowner, that have space for annuals?
We do not. We do not focus on annuals at all in Edmonston in any of our gardens, and I do not know of any homes here in town that do that. The reason being, we have one part-time public works person, and so we would be contracting that service out. We have a very limited budget here in Edmonston, and so we concentrate our annuals on planters and specific areas around town hall, our recreation community center, and our signage. And then a few years back, we had 34 concrete planters that were used down in DC during the 9/11 era, and the company is in Edmonston. They donated them to us, and we have those planters located all down Main Street and throughout some of our other streets. And so those are all planted with annuals. And so our workload is such that we have not explored or tried to do annuals other than in the bike baskets that you saw, the example of the art project, the baskets do have annuals in those to provide a bit of pop of color for the gardens.
Great. All right, so you mentioned the use of native plants. The question is, can I use cultivated varieties of native plants? For example, there are many new varieties of coneflower which have diverse color selections.
Yes, I would encourage that. As I said, you want to see color and you want to see variety. And I could have showed you lots of examples off of the web of beautiful rain gardens in yards, more so in yards, as ours are focused primarily all along the street. We have tried to be colorful in that case, and we do have different shades of coneflowers in some of our planters. So encourage the use of a variety of color, absolutely.
Right. All right, we have a few questions on cost, and I know you did touch on this, but let's go through it again. How much is the contract for maintenance, and does this cover all 100 rain gardens?
Yeah, so it's hard to say the exact cost of that because we, as I indicated, our public works is a part-time public works employee, and then all of the rest of our public works is contracted out. So our landscape contractor does all of our mowing, and that means mowing around all of these rain gardens, weeding the rain gardens, spring and fall cleanup, and that contract's about $75,000 a year, and it includes all 99 rain gardens as part of that contract. So I can't tell you how much it is specifically per rain garden, but for us that works for us for the 99 rain gardens and all of our mowing and tree trimming and landscaping that the company does.
So, Ron, I know you talked about getting money from the rescue plan. This question may be related to that. Who is paying for the installation? And if it is the town, from where is this money allocated?
Yeah, it is the town that's paid for all of these. It's approximately of the 99 rain gardens, it's cost about $2.1 million, and all of that money has come from grant dollars. So that those grants are coming from Chesapeake Bay Trust, from the Prince George's County Stormwater Management Program, from EPA, anywhere that we can find a grant. Edmonston's budget is about 1.8 million, 950,000 of that is police, and so we do not have a capital budget and cannot spend any money on capital improvements. So all of our capital improvements come from grant dollars that we seek out and are successful at receiving.
Are the rain gardens installed as part of a regulatory compliance?
Well, they no. We chose to do the rain gardens as a way to solve street flooding and stormwater flooding in rain events here in Edmonston. As a side benefit of that, the county is our MP4 permit for EPA, and so they do get value in terms of points for meeting the requirements for nitrogen and phosphate and all of that removal that they have to count and track in. And we do have to, when we submit our grants, we have to determine how much of the rain gardens, what the watershed size is, how much nitrogen is going to be removed, how much phosphorus, and all that. So, yes.
Okay, we'll continue on. We've got just a few more minutes, but we do have some more questions. The mulch that you had identified early in your presentation, should you avoid wood bark because it might float away?
That's a great question because we did try that and it did float away. So I don't mean to laugh because it's a wonderful question. Great question. We had a rain garden located next to town hall, and an elderly lady, she would just scream at me every time it rained because they filled the garden with wood mulch, and every time the water poured off of our parking lot or from our roof into that particular garden, it just washed it all out into the street and right down the storm drain. And so you do have to be very much aware of that. In that case, we came back and we lined that rain garden with rock, and so that the water would flow without washing the wood chips away. So be cognizant of where you use it and how it's used so that that doesn't occur and you're not washing wood chips down your storm drains.
All right, this is a question from our friend in South Dakota. The question is, on average, what is the average size of rain garden you have installed? He is looking for examples on a block. How many rain gardens are necessary for a block? Make sure I said that
Um,
correctly.
okay. Cole, thank you. I hope you're doing well. We're excited to have you as part of our American Bloom family, and I was thrilled to be able to visit your community last year. So um, it varies. We have one of our latest installations is a residential street that's approximately one block, maybe almost, I guess it's a long block, so maybe almost 2 blocks, and we did 9 rain gardens. So they're typically in the right of way, so they don't exceed 10 feet in width, and then they can vary in length of, however long the frontage is between the sidewalk entrance onto the street, but they can be 10 feet, they can be 6 feet. It just varies. The engineer really takes a look at the topography of the area and then determines, but they're never wider than 6 to 8 feet because of we're again using the public right of way. Unless we have a very large one, you saw one of the pictures on a curve that into our industrial park. That one we had a very large public right of way, so we could make the rain garden bigger.
All right, we have 2 more questions, unless something would happen to come in at the last moment. If you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A section. The question is, what impact have you seen then on stormwater management?
Tremendous. We're getting ready to do a white paper. We're submitting a grant next month that will fund the work of our engineer to create a white paper that is going to actually put that down in writing and calculate. But the one thing we can notice right away is when we get a heavy downpour where there's lots of stormwater running. And remember, keep in mind that the stormwater system here in Edmonston was built for the 3-year flood, of which now the standard, if you're building for communities in Prince George's County, it has to be for a 10-year flood. So we have a very outdated storm drainage system. But with the advent of the rain gardens, we see that the streets are less flooded. We only have a couple of locations now where there's a problem with ponding of water in a downpour. And so as a result, we're pretty certain that they're accomplishing what we had set out to do, and that's to get the water out of the street and off the street as fast as we can so that traffic is not impeded by floods or downpours.
Right. All right. And I've saved this question for last. I love this question. What is special about Edmonston that makes it so successful in installing so many rain gardens?
Oh wow. Oh wow. Well, I believe it's special because of its diversity and because of the location of where it's as we're a very the mayor likes to say we're a small city with big green vision, and our community buys into that vision. So our residents, particularly the Hispanic community, is very excited about planting trees and planting these plants when we have them. They're our food composting programs successful. Because we live and breathe it, we're pushing out education of that, and because of where we're located in the Anacostia watershed, we're right next to the northeast branch of the Anacostia. Everyone understands the importance of protecting the environment, and we started at an early age with the elementary students and the high school students, and we have lots of education that helps make that work. But yes, Edmonston is very special in that it's one of the greenest communities in the region.
Well, it is a very special community, Rod. And thanks for all that you're doing there. All right, so that's going to wrap up the Q&A section. That also is going to wrap up the webinar. So thank you so much, Rod. That was outstanding. Really appreciate your being with us today. We will have a recording of this webinar posted on the AIB website later today, and it will be posted on AIB's Facebook page. I do hope that you're following us on Facebook. Our next webinar is on Tuesday, May 19th at 12 noon Eastern Time. We've had a lot of requests for this webinar, so we're bringing it to you. It's called How to Start a 501c3 for Your Local In Bloom Program. It will be presented by Craig Baldridge, who successfully created a 501c3 for his organization, Shawnee Blooms, in Shawnee Hills, Ohio. You do not want to miss this webinar. You can learn more about this and other webinars we offer by visiting our website at americainbloom.org/webinars. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thanks again to Rod Barnes of the Towns of Edmonston, Maryland, for the wonderful presentation. Have a great day, everyone.